Gonzalez and Congressmember Velasquez's teams are joining us too, that we all receive on a regular basis. And so what we're hoping to do this evening and on a recurring basis is to bring together representatives from each of the developers, bring together representatives from the relevant city agencies that provide oversight of development projects so that we can better coordinate and communicate together to mitigate reasonable issues. And when you've got 2 big development projects happening on the same block, or 4 happening in a 2-block radius, it's a lot to deal with. And if we can think together about after-hour variances, or the times the trucks are coming in, or the sanitation policies to clean up around the sites, we can significantly improve and address quality of life concerns that I know many of you are concerned about. And so I firstly just want to say thank you to each of the development teams for making themselves available and engaging tonight. You weren't required to be here, and you chose to be here, and we appreciate it. And I want to thank our partners in city government for being here as well. We'll be introducing everybody in a moment. Just wanted to, before I kick it over to Emily, just run through the logistics for the evening. So, there we go, sorry. We will be just introducing each of the development teams that are here, that will give you a 1-minute overview of the projects that they're working on around the neighborhood. And then we have index cards out around on each of the tables. Feel free to write your questions down. We'll get through as many of them as we can. Emily's team and my team, Andrew Epstein in the blue shirt in the back, and Emily Ruby in the navy shirt here, are going to be collecting index cards and passing them up, and we'll make sure to try and cover as many as we can. We're really focused on active construction projects around the neighborhood and how we can work together to improve conditions in our community. That's really the purpose of the evening's conversation tonight, but we welcome whatever questions folks have. So without further ado, my friend, our Assembly Member, Emily Gallagher.
Thank you. Hi everyone, I'm Emily Gallagher. I'm the Assembly Member for this district. And I am really pleased that we've been able to put this together. Often, all we need is better communication between the different stakeholders and different agencies. And I think this is a unique opportunity to actually get everybody in the same room and hearing the same issues. So I'm really grateful for everybody in participating and grateful for all of you guys for showing up. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Emily. And Dan is drying off. I don't know if he's already prepared to say hello, but sorry to put you on the spot, Dan. Oh, he looks very wet. This does not look like a pleasant bike ride here. But Dan Wiley is the District Director for Congressman Velasquez and a neighbor and a great guy.
Well, all I can say is I'm here, with my sleeves rolled up. Just biked over the Greenpoint Avenue Bridge from our Queens office. Thank you, Lincoln, and all the local electeds who came together to put this together. Very important for Congresswoman Velasquez that we have sensible development that is coordinated, and in that thought, looking forward to working with you to make sure we have the best coordination possible and try to keep some quality of life. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Dan. So firstly, I just want to give a shout out to each of the city agency folks and state agency folks that are here so folks know who's in the room. Firstly, we've got the Department of Transportation's Brooklyn Borough Commissioner, Keith Gray. Thank you for being here, Keith. We have from the Department of Environmental Correction, Jane O'Connell. I saw Jane. Where did she go? Oh, there you are, Jane. Sorry. Thanks for being with us, Jane. And we also have Andre Obligado. How did I do on that? Is that okay? I didn't mess it up too bad. From the Department of Buildings, our new point of contact. I haven't had a chance to meet you yet. Nice to meet you, Philip Arnold. Thanks so much for being here from DOB. From the 94th Precinct, we have Lieutenant Matthew Delaney. Thanks so much for being here, Lieutenant. Unfortunately, both the Department of Environmental Protection and the Department of Sanitation had to cancel at the last minute tonight, but they've committed to participate in future meetings, and if anyone has any DEP noise concerns or sanitation concerns, we'll be sure to follow up with them directly and get back in touch. So from here, we're going to just introduce each of the developers. On your tables are handouts, and we'll be going in order of the handout, and just do a brief overview of each of the projects that are represented here. I should say, if there are any development projects where we don't have the developers here tonight, we're happy to invite them for future meetings. So just let us know if we're missing anybody, and we'll make sure to invite them to this awesome party. So why don't we start first with Ray Builders from 7787 Commercial Street, Maged Rafael. Do we have Maged here? Oh, great. Maged, do you mind just introducing yourself and just giving a 45-second overview of the project?
here at Salem.
I am managing the final project executive for the Salem Commercial Street. One of the big projects in greenpoint. I have been here for a few years. The project is 766 units, 30% is affordable housing, and it's the first one in your task force construction. I'm here to answer any question. I think we have a good time. We are almost done, to be honest. We are planning to get TCO in the coming few days, I hope. So we are almost done. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Next up, I lost my page. Next up, we have, sorry. There we go. We have Halcyon, we have Linda Alexander as consultant on the 60 Wharf Drive project to just introduce that one. Nice to see you, Linda. How are you?
I work out of communications for Halcyon. I have for many, many years, so I know that they're an amazing, you don't need to hear this one, amazing developer. West Wharf comprises 1,900 units, of which 538 will be affordable. Currently, 217 units, affordable units, are built and 70% occupied, the first one. The second one is in the ground. There will be, right now, 2 market rate buildings, 60 Wharf Drive, and the other one is in the ground. And we've got the TCO and people moving in there. The remarkable thing about West Wharf is that it has 50,000 square feet of outdoor plaza, park-like area that is open to the public. So it really is all-inclusive, and people can walk straight from West Street to the river, and there are 3 outlooks, and there's seating, there's tables. It is peaceful and wonderful, and it is about the community. So West Wharf is, I have been working with your amazing community here for a long time, for the last 3 years, even during the pandemic. There were remarkable community members. So we're done, we're getting there, so little by little. 60 Wharf Drive is done, and our other market rate is in the ground, and so it's the next affordable piece. So, thank you.
Thanks for being with us, Linda. That's a big project. I think we all know it well on the water by Clay. Next up, we have Madison Realty Capital, and Ashley is a consultant representing them tonight. This is the Newhart site, and one that they've been holding regular quarterly meetings with the community, and if you haven't signed up for their weekly email updates, they provide really good information every week on what's happening at the site. So I'll kick it over. Oh, no? Who do you want?
Hi, Ashley sitting right here. Shalom Silverman with Madison Realty Capital. Thank you again for the introduction. We're the developers of the former Newhart site. We're doing the remediation and the redevelopment. It's going to be 473 units. 30% will be affordable. We expect TCO in 2025. Obviously, as Lincoln stated, we've been working very closely with the Greenpoint community and the other city agencies and all the electeds to really, make this project a success for everyone in this room and everyone in the Greenpoint community. So thank you, and we'll continue to work with all of you.
Thank you so much, and I think as many folks in this room know, Newhart is a state Superfund site, so we're fortunate to have Jane from DDC here who's been actively involved in overseeing this one. Next up, from Investmates at 29 Clay Street and 6062 Commercial, we have Egon Chitrin.
Here. We have started construction yet on 29 Clay Street, a residential building with 34 apartments, 10% affordable, and on 6062 Commercial Street we have a community facility. So ultimately be either a medical center or educational. In the program, so we expect to hopefully next year sometime July to start the construction.
I'm really sorry, I skipped somebody, and that was Lindley, so I apologize. I think we're going back, if you don't mind, to One Java, which is a big geothermal project. It's going to be the largest geothermal project, certainly in New York City history. And they also have a strong email program, so recommend signing up for Lend-Lease's updates. We've got Brooke Nicholson and Lady. Brooke, you want to say hello?
Thanks. Hi, Brooke Nicholson with Lend-Lease Development on the One Java site. I'm here with Leigh Mahdi, my colleague, and Josh August. I'll shout out to you as well. So One Java is about 790 square feet, going to be 834 units, 251 of which are affordable. We'll also have 14,000 square feet of retail, and we'll also have a wonderful waterfront park trying to continue on and create a whole cohesive waterfront for the Greenpoint neighborhood. And I'm going to hand it, anticipated completion early 2026, and Lake's going to talk a bit about sustainability.
Great. Thanks for having us. We're very proud of the sustainability work we're doing at One Java. As Linda mentioned, it's the largest multi-family geothermal project in New York State and possibly the whole country. So the geothermal system that we deploy will allow us to cut carbon emissions from heating and cooling in our building by 3%. We will be LEED Gold certified, and we're very conscious about decarbonizing our entire supply chain, so we spend a lot of time thinking about where we source our materials and what we specify, and just contributing to a more sustainable future in New York, but also hopefully beyond. Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much. Next up, we will hear from the Park Tower Group, and representing Park Tower, we have Tess Williams and Melissa Rosenberg.
Hi, I'm Tess Williams. I'm with the Park Tower Group. We are just finishing up 35 Commercial Street, which is a 374-unit building. It's fully affordable, and that lottery wrapped up in July, so we're looking forward to getting some folks from the community moved into those units starting this fall.
Thank you so much. And I have to say, I went on a tour recently, and I know Emily did too. It's amazing. 374 units. The income levels of the housing are really good. They're accessible to working class people. There's a lot of solar power. There's a beautiful fitness center. It's a great development. It's like actually affordable for our community. So thank you on that one. Next up, we've got representatives from, we have Rockefeller. So from Rockefeller, we have Jay Lee and James Lee, 16 DuPont Street. Thank you, gentlemen.
Hi, my name is Eric Sells. I'm in for James Levy. This is my colleague Jay. I work with the Rockefeller Group, and we are constructing 16 DuPont Street, which is between Franklin and West Streets. It is going to be a 40-story, 381-unit apartment building with 115 affordable units, as well as ground floor retail and resident amenities. We are currently up to our 21st floor, and we are expecting completion in the second quarter of 2025. Thanks for having us.
And last but not least, from Brookfield, we've got Pete Sullivan. Excellent. Oh, you're something.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for coming out. I know it's kind of rainy, so I really appreciate it. I'm Laura Montross, stepping in for my colleague Kate Sullivan with Brookfield Properties. We've been in the Greenpoint community for a while. We've developed 4 projects up there in the northernmost tip. We're actually done with construction and have a ton of folks moved in with both a mix of market rate and affordable units. But here to answer any questions in the meantime. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Laura. So, first let me just introduce our state senator, Kristen Gonzalez. Do you want to say hello, Kristen?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. So good to be here. Apologies for being late. I'm sure you heard it from Rick and Emily, but it feels really good to see the turnout here because we know how big of a concern construction is to quality of life. We know that, our community is better off when we're able to hear from all of you and have your voices be part of this process. So thank you for showing up, giving your time, and as electeds, we're here to really listen and hear those concerns. So yeah, with that, I think I'm going to give with that so we can get to it. Thank you.
Thanks so much. And I just wanted to make two other comments before we open it up to questions. One is, nearly 20 years ago now, the Greenpoint loans for waterfront rezoning passed. And there were many major promises that were made to our community then that the city, over successive mayors, Bloomberg, de Blasio, and Adams, have totally failed to follow up on. We were promised a new school. It is not. We're nowhere close to seeing it built. We were promised new parks at Box Street and at Bushwick Inlet Park. Best case scenario, we'll break ground on 85% of Box Street next year and are a ways away from completing the full vision of Bushwick Inlet Park. We're happy to share any updates on those if folks have questions or concerns, but just want you to know that for Kristen, for Emily, myself, and Congressman Velasquez's team, we are laser focused on holding this administration accountable to following through on the promises that were made to our community during this rezoning. We cannot accept any further delays. It's been far too long, and we are going to fight until we get each and every park and school and community amenity that we were promised all those years ago. Thank you. So, I forgot to thank our gracious host, the Polish Slavic Center. So PSE is the best. We really appreciate you having us here tonight. This is a great meeting space, and we're thrilled to all be together. I'm happy to start, if you don't mind. Thanks. So, first up, what's the status of Box Street Park? Who's responsible for the development? What is the bottleneck? All right, I'll try to do this one quickly because, 17 years ago, the Metropolitan Transit Authority, the MTA, wrote a letter to Mayor Bloomberg that they would vacate from Box Street Park, which is going to be a gorgeous multi-acre park on our waterfront. But in the 17 years since, we had seen far too little progress. Last year, I personally project managed the opening of a new paratransit facility in the Bronx that is relocating most of the vehicles from this site. So we have site control for 85% of the site. And in this budget, we were able to get $10 additional million, an additional $10 million to fully fund the park. So we are going to have an amazing park at Box Street. The challenge is that there were some additional remediation concerns that were identified by DEC and the EPA, and we are now going through the process of getting the site cleaned up. An investigation is ongoing now on those conditions. We do, my office and with our colleagues in government, we hold monthly meetings with the Parks Department and the Economic Development Corporation that's responsible for building the park to try our best to push it forward and keep it on track. We're hopeful that we'll see ground broken next year. Depends a little bit on what's found on the remedial investigation for the environmental conditions. But our hope and expectation is to see it ground broken on next year, and it should be from there. We'll get back to you on exactly the timeline for the completion of the park, but we're moving forward on it as quickly as possible. There is still 15% of the vehicles on the lot that are essentially emergency response vehicles. We have not yet found a location to relocate them. So for now, the plan is to build the park on 85% of the lot while we still work with the MTA to relocate the remaining vehicles. If anyone has a spot to keep them nearby, they want to be near the bridges and near Western Queens and Northern Greenpoint, we're doing our best to try to make that happen. We've got a question for 29 Clay Street. Is it confirmed that 29 Clay Street will be able to build 12 stories? Are the plans approved? How is the zoning height determined? How do they plan to implement the foundation? Mini piles, question mark? Will they need to underpin neighboring buildings such as 1133 Manhattan and 70 Commercial Street?
Yeah, 29 Street will be 150 feet tall. The plans are approved. Once the architecture are approved, zoning was done, and whatever. foundation. It's going to be, there's no basement, basically, so matte foundation. Underpinning is going to be some underpinning only on 19th day. So 1133, and then underpinning over the building on 74 Commercial Street. 70%. No, 70% will not be affected by any of it. Match the footing system again, there is no basement.
Thanks so much. I hope that answers the question. Next up, we have a question for Mr. Arnold from the Department of Buildings. How can the Buildings Department allow 4+ or multiple construction sites on one block at the same time, with the myriad parking issues, noise issues, ground issues that happen with multiple development sites on the same block? Is that something that DOB considers when issuing permits for a project?
Good evening, everyone. So let me be very forthcoming and transparent. I am in the community engagement capacity. So when it comes to the policies as it pertains to building, that is the plan examiners and other facets, that's way above my pay grade, but I'm happy to take any and all questions back and come back with a concise answer.
Okay. I think, unfortunately, currently the Department of Buildings will approve multiple sites on the same block. It can cause a lot of challenges for the neighborhood, but there's nothing that prevents. DOB issues the permits based on whether the developer has done all of the appropriate things. So it's a frustrating dynamic. I think it's something that we should look at in terms of local and state law to try to limit the amount of construction that's happening in a given spot at the same time, just for management from a community standpoint. Okay, this is a question that doesn't pertain precisely to one of these development projects, but I think is relevant, and perhaps DEC has some insight for us on this one. There's a concrete plant going up at 270 Green Street, between Green and Huron, located just within the M3-1 district. This site is only half a block away from residential areas and will pollute with particulate matter a radius in that area. Is there any oversight that DEC has for new concrete plants going up, or any concerns or oversight that we should be mindful as a community?
Well, I can't talk to you about, hi, I'm Jane O'Connell from DEC. In terms of where they can put it, that's a local zoning issue. DEC's involvement for a concrete plant would probably be air permits, things like that. So if you get me some more information about the specifics, I can ask our air program and see if there's any permits that are before our agency right now.
Thanks so much, Jane. We will follow up in writing on the concrete plant at 270 Green. Thank you to the person who raised it. For Newhart, we have a question. How is climate change being taken into account for the mitigation of the Newhart site? And perhaps DEC has some insight into this as well. But Zach, you want to start on that one? How is climate change being taken into account for the mitigation of the Newhart site?
Hey everyone, sorry I'm a few minutes late. I heard my colleague Sheldon Silverman did a great job on my behalf. Climate change. So for this project, we really just follow, everything's as of right. I wouldn't say that there's anything above and beyond except complying with the latest energy code and DOB. So maybe electric car chargers and additional installation for the exterior envelope. But above that, there's nothing extraordinary about this project.
Jane, is there anything you'd like to add around climate change and mitigation at Newhart? And just maybe giving a little overview on the record of decision for those who aren't familiar.
So the Newhart site, in terms of the record of decision, which is the proposed remediation, or the remediation is actually ongoing right now. The record of decision was issued in, I want to say 2015, 2017, something like that. It is being implemented now. In terms of climate change being accounted for in the remedial selection process, there are certain things that go into account when we're looking at the remediation. But because this is what's called a dig and haul remedial action, we we weren't able to do what's called an in situ, an in-place cleanup because of the type of contamination that's there. In terms of climate change, again, it's following whatever the current codes are. That's what we have to do. Okay.
Thank you, Jane. We have a question about 210 Green Street, which has sewer sludge coming out of kitchen sinks. How are the sewer systems being updated? So, for whoever is the constituent from 210 Green Street, please follow up with Emily now or at the conclusion of the meeting so we can track your information. Emily Ruby, sorry, just Emily's got your hand up here. I was pointing, sorry. Emily Ruby up here to my left. She will help, and we will follow up with the Department of Buildings and the Department of Environmental Protection to make sure that we get inspectors out there immediately. That's a totally unacceptable situation. For Greenpoint Landing and 77 West, what and when are you envisioning for increasing access to the waterfront? And to what degree are you involved in increasing flood resiliency? So, I don't know, Brookfield or, yeah, that's the best part.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that'd be helpful. So for context, represent Brookfield, and we have been involved in 4 projects as part of a master plan of Greenpoint Landing. All told, that's a 22-acre site. And to date, we've built north of 3.5 acres of public waterfront park. I hope many of you have been able to enjoy that waterfront park. From a resiliency standpoint, it was the first public park built after Sandy. So it incorporates an updated code that calls for certain types of resiliency standards. For example, it's designed as 2 tiers. The lower tier, adjacent to the river, is designed with certain types of vegetation that absorb floodwaters should they come up to a 100-year flood zone. The second tier is built 17 feet above that flood zone, so as to prevent flooding not only on the perimeter, but in fact act as a barrier for the entirety of the neighborhood behind the river. So those are the 2 contributions I think we benefit from in the neighborhood, and a lot of that has to do with, again, instilling this new updated code in a post-Hurricane Sandy world.
Thanks so much. Did you want to jump in on that, Dan, as well?
No, I was saying that.
Oh, great. Okay. Next up, our school is overcrowded. 32 kids in first grade makes it hard for students and teachers. We've needed another elementary school for years, and now the need is extreme. We need a school, and in the interim, money for more teachers in our current schools. I couldn't agree with the person who asked this question more. I think as most folks in this room are probably familiar, the rezoning and the waterfront rezoning from nearly 20 years ago approved a new school directly across the street from the New Hart site at DuPont and Franklin. And community members have expressed alarm over the years about why we would put a school where kids are, at their most vulnerable, essentially on top of a state Superfund site. And I want you to know that it's one of my top priorities, and I know Emily and Kristen and Congresswoman Velasquez's top priorities, that we get a new school built safely in Greenpoint. In fact, we identified a new site for a school, and the developer was prepared to include it in their development plans in northern Greenpoint. Unfortunately, the mayor's office has not yet approved this plan. They've actually rejected it, despite the fact that it's a similar size site that would be a perfect location for a school. We're not going to stop pushing until we get this administration to respect our community, work with our community, build the new school that we were promised at a safe location. But at this time, we don't have a solution yet with the administration. I know that there are some issues around overcrowding at PS 31 this year. 2 of our first grade classes, and if one is 1 student over, 2 are 2 students over. We do, thanks to leadership in Albany, and I want to shout out Assemblymember Gallagher and Senator Gonzalez, have a new class size law that will take effect, that is beginning to gradually take effect to reduce mandated class sizes across the DOE system. And by the time it's fully implemented in 2027, 2028, which is a few years away, class sizes can be no more than 20 kids for kindergarten through 3rd grade and no more than 23 kids for 4th through 8th grade. That is going to be an enormous improvement for our communities here in Greenpoint and across the city. In the interim, we're pushing as hard as we can to bring additional resources into our schools. Unfortunately, Mayor and the Chancellor did not protect school funding in this budget. It's one of the reasons that I voted against it, because our schools need more support, and we didn't get it. So we're going to keep pushing, and we're in touch with leadership at PS31, with Superintendent Cintrone, and with school leaders at Tweed, where the DOE is headquartered, to try our best to bring additional resources in to support our schools. Principal Scarlato is closely monitoring and managing the class sizes at PS31, and if additional kids come into the school, perhaps we'll have enough students to require the addition of a first grade class, but at this time, we do not. One thing that I'll just share for, just context that I think is helpful is that our school enrollments overall are down significantly from where they were just a few years ago. Back in 2019, 2020, before the pandemic, since then, we've seen a 20% decline in enrollment at PS110, an 11% decline in enrollment at PS31, and a 13% decline in enrollment at PS34 for the projected enrollments for this year relative to just a few years ago. So we've got a lot of work to do to get more families into our public school system, and if we have enough teachers in the building, we certainly have capacity to serve more kids in each of our schools at the current time. But certainly with all the development that's coming across the community, we do absolutely need another school and need another school soon. Great. Questions about 60 Wharf? Where did they go? Oh, great, thank you. How much entryway to public space? Could you speak to that?
I can. We've got 50,000 square feet of parkland, and there is construction there now. But there is a pathway direct and a beautiful, beautiful plaza on West Street, and I believe, not Collier, West Street, right around there. You would know it better than I. But you can walk directly to the park. There's seating. It is really peaceful, and it is open to the neighborhood, to the community, to the public right now. So it's 50,000 square feet in total outdoor space when the development is complete. But right now, there's substantial square footage. Again, this is a 7-acre lot, and I just encourage you to, not on a night like tonight, but on a weekend like this weekend, to go down there and take a look at it, and sit there and enjoy it, and read, and have a cup of coffee. It's wonderful.
What's the entryway?
The entryway is on West Street.
How big is it? What's the width of the entryway?
The width of it is probably about 30 feet wide. I mean, it's big. So,
and we have a related question is, 60 Wharf has a large amount of blacktop or streets. Will that be converted into park, or is that all remaining as road space?
It's going to be converted into park. I mean, there's Wharf Drive, and that's the primary egress there. And of course, on the other side, you've got Collier. But this is again 50,000 square feet of public land, of land that is open to the public.
Big distinction.
Thank you very much. And then one more for Linda and also for the team at One Java. What are you doing to ensure that bike lanes aren't blocked? In particular, on West Street, Wharf Street, One Java are frequent offenders. At the same time, trucks are in the bike lane, often idling, which is of course illegal. What is being done to stop both of these things, which are illegal?
I think the problem is ubiquitous. I mean, I'm a member West Side on Manhattan Metro Station. I help to get our bike lanes on Amsterdam and Columbus. That is a problem, but I can tell you right now that Halcyon built protected bike lanes on West Street, and they will continue to improve them and make them better. So I can't account for delivery trucks, and they're not supposed to be there, and they're not supposed to be idling. But so far, we already have a protected bike lane on West Street from Collier to Oak, and beyond. And they will be there when the construction is finished. They'll be further protected, and they'll be improved.
Thank you. And would the One Java team also share insights on block bike lanes and idling trucks?
I echo the concerns on the idling trucks and how difficult it is to manage that. As far as the bike lane in front of our project, we're early in construction, so there have been a few logistical changes. We'll acknowledge that, but one of the things we've worked hard with DOT for is to, even when we're doing the in-road work, try to adjust the bike lane and keep some level of bike and pedestrian open. So we'll continue. There will be a few more adjustments throughout construction, but our main goal is to keep a bike lane open in each direction the whole way through.
We've got a number more DOT questions, so I'm going to put Commissioner Bray on the hot seat. That's a smile, because he was ready. West Street needs crosswalks and stop signs. How does this happen? We have been trying for 3.5 years and have been ignored.
So you probably have not been ignored, but the way we add crosswalks is usually we need to add a stop sign or a traffic signal to protect traffic when it's crossing. And crosswalks are there basically to control the right of way, so that's their purpose. And it's got to be some control device there to actually control the right of way. So when we look at an intersection, we do a study to see if it meets certain standards, if it's federal engineering standards that we follow, and sometimes we use judgment on whether to add a always stop sign or a traffic signal. And if one of those happens to be met the standards we follow, then we'll add that and then the crosswalks will follow. So that's basically the answer on that one.
Before you get too comfortable, Commercial Street is being used heavily as it transitions from industrial to residential uses and with all the construction. How is this being addressed? Crosswalks were added, but no curb cuts. They are blocked daily.
Yeah, so very similar to Kent Avenue like 15 years ago. And my message to them, I'll say the same in commercial. When it's built, they'll come. So again, the standards we have for crosswalks and for traffic signal stop signs, we look at people, pedestrians crossing, vehicle numbers, are there conflicts, are there preventable crashes, those sort of things we look at. And so whatever's industrial areas at those times, they probably meet those standards. We sort of in between a lot of construction, probably still doesn't meet those standards when people get there. As you see in Kent Avenue now, a lot of signals start coming. So that's probably what happened. But at any time, you can make a request to DOT, and we're happy to look at these locations for safety, because that is one of the main things that our agency is here for, and we're fighting for street safety throughout the city. So if there's problems in a location, let us know. Going back to what the other people said about blocked bike lanes, yes, that's a problem. We try to deal with it. We work with more PD. More importantly, try to work with the buildings to see if there's things we can do. With our construction projects, our team work with developers to do stipulations on the street to make sure, or try to make sure that they follow it. If they don't, we have inspectors to go out there and say you're not following our stipulations, and we'll cite them to follow them. So we do follow that.
Thank you. And just to add a couple pieces on, our office has recently completed a survey of residents from across the district trying to identify opportunities for improving street safety and intersections throughout the district. We got 400 responses for specific suggestions for where we need stop signs, where we need speed bumps, where we need crosswalks, how we can slow down traffic and make our neighborhood safer. We're in the process of submitting all of those requests to DOT. We meet on a monthly basis with Commissioner Bray to go through every single issue around the district where we can try to help improve safety for constituents. On Commercial Street in particular, we have a fully funded capital project. I don't remember how many millions of dollars? $12 million. It's in design right now. It got some good feedback from myself and Assemblymember Gallagher and Senator Gonzalez and Congresswoman Velasquez's teams, and we'll be presenting that to the community in the future. This will make the Commercial Street area much safer. Additionally, we still have some outdated parking regulations, especially in the northern tip of Greenpoint, from when the area was more industrial, where alternate side parking is overnight hours, which makes it really hard to park your car if you have to move it between 12 and 3 in the morning. So we're working with DOT and the Department of Sanitation to update those parking requirements so that they function like more traditional residential communities. Sticking with you though. With this new development across the community and an increase in housing, there will be significant increase in traffic volume. See Kent Avenue by Domino. What is the plan for handling the reduction of parking, no parking requirements, city bike docks, car share parking? It's all reducing street use for cars. Cars are not going away. What is the plan to handle this? Lane reductions seem like the wrong plan. how do you see this working effectively?
There was a lot of issues in one question. So I will say that the DOT very much recognizes that private vehicles are not going away in the city of New York. So that none of our plans or anything we do with regards to bike lanes, or car share, or bike share, or any other programs that mentioned that question has anything to do with reducing private vehicle ownership, actually except for car share, because we're hoping that maybe some people with their zip cars or whatever their neighborhoods, they would decide to use car share instead of private vehicles. But the limited program, not like 1,000 cars in the street. So basically, we understand that there's going to be an increase in traffic when there's more buildings, but a lot of it is to deal with the fact that if you build buildings, what kind of transportation system do you have, or give alternatives to people who may not have a private vehicle, which is the majority of citizens in New York City don't own a private vehicle. So what is the transportation there right now? Obviously, MTA builds the trains, they build buses. The New York City Department of Transportation also tries to deal with other modes of travel to encourage people. So we try to make things safer. So we talked about First Street earlier. So make things safer there, add bike lanes, and encourage that to other things. So that's actually what we're doing, not in the war cars, but we are trying to encourage for the majority of New Yorkers who don't have the private vehicles, how they're going to get around safely. That's what a lot of those programs are about.
Thank you, Keith. Next question is how many parking spaces and per apartment ratio do buildings have? So this is a bit of a complicated question. It depends on the zoning of the site where the building is going up. So in some districts, in some zoning, you're required to build parking spots for 85% of the units. In some locations, depending on the zoning, it's like 66% of the units. For some things, like senior affordable housing, it's 0 parking spaces. And in fact, one of the things that Mayor Adams is working on right now that he's proposing, he's going to release to the public later this week, is reductions in parking requirements in the developments. It won't affect the projects. It won't affect these projects that have already gone up, obviously, but it will reduce, if it's ultimately passed and approved by the City Council, the amount of new parking that's generated in affordable housing developments altogether in transit-rich areas, which include greenpoint. On July 4th, the bike lane in front of 21 India Street, West Street between India and Huron, is often blocked by trucks. The Huron. I don't think they're here today, but can your office bug them? We'll certainly bug them, and we'll follow the DOT as well to make sure that that area is clear. We have a question about the India Street ferry. We don't have EDC here, but we can include them in the future if it's helpful. I think we're spared for now, Keith. There's requests to set up service to shuttles from 14th Street to India Street to East Village, 24-hour service, discounts for Greenpoint residents. Those all seem like good ideas. We actually met with the entity that runs the ferry system today, Hornblower, and we're happy to share these good suggestions. Okay, so I live on Java Street, and there are currently 3 buildings. I think this is a question for you, Philip. I live on Java Street, and there are currently 3 buildings under construction. I'm routinely cleaning insulation from construction out of my yard and dealing with an influx of rabbits. What can be done to ensure these building sites keep our block clean? If we follow what the address is, can we get inspectors out to those buildings?
It might already allow. We really encourage. So in situations like that, we really encourage anyone and everyone. If there's something dealing with the construction site, the first thing you want to do is make a 311 complaint so that it can be triaged, assessed, and sent for the right inspection. If the response is not feasible, then it is strongly encouraged to follow up with the community board and or your elected. They get in touch with me. I put a little pressure internally on our inspection unit, and we can document everything that has gone on. So the first thing you want to do in that situation is make a 311 complaint and follow up accordingly.
And follow up with us. So for whoever put that question in from Java Street that's getting debris and other insulation and trash in their backyard, please let Emily Rubio know. We will follow up with DOB tomorrow and make sure that we get inspectors out to the construction sites on that block to get those conditions under control. The next question is for 77 Commercial Street. My understanding is that this building found a way out of offering inclusionary housing. Is this true? And if not, when will the lottery be posted? Forgive me, who's here from 77 Commercial? There we go, all the way in the back. You want to hang out with us up front so we can get to you a little easier?
I'm not the developer, I'm the contractor, so I will ask the developer and we have three parts, 85 commercial, 77 commercial, and 87 commercial. So 85 is the podium, and the South Tower, both are expected by end of this month or early October TCO. The North Tower will take another month or so to get TCO. So we have three parts of the project, not one part. It's big
No CO until we get our affordable housing.
Yeah, we have affordable housing.
And when you get posted?
I don't know. I'm the contractor.
We will follow up with you as soon as we get a date. We'll follow with District or the developer to get a
Lots of luck.
Yeah. Clarity on when that lottery will be moving forward. But I am confident that there's affordable housing at 77 Commercial, and we'll work to make sure that the lottery is posted with HPD as quickly as possible.
Highly affordable.
I don't know if it's highly affordable. I just know that there's housing.
Highly affordable is our goal.
It's certainly the goal. It's just, okay. I'm asking after hours work. I'm asking to put an end to after-hour variances, except in the rare case they are absolutely required. Hundreds, if not thousands of these permits have been issued over the years. It's hard for me to believe these permits were issued properly. There are only 4 reasons listed on an AHV after-hour variance application: undue hardship, constitution activities with minimal noise. I think that means construction activities. I don't think it's constitution activities. Construction activities with minimal noise, impact, emergency work, public safety, and a city construction project. On a daily basis, including weekends, these permits are issued. These can be found in the public record. It is hard to believe every day these developers had emergency work. I'm not interested in looking back, but going forward, we have to put an end to this. So, after-hours variances can be just absolutely infuriating for neighbors. It's one thing to have construction going all day, Monday through Friday, but when it's starting early in the morning and it's going till late at night and then it's happening on the weekends, it can drive you crazy. And so please reach out to our office if there are after-hours variances that you think are inappropriate. The benefit of the longer work hours is that the project gets done sooner, so it's a trade-off. But if there are issues where a developer has after-hour variances and you're concerned about them, let us know. We will follow the Department of Buildings immediately. On a regular basis, we follow up and have after-hour variances lifted on projects that are problematic. And we work with the developers to understand when is it actually an emergency, when does it really make a difference. In one site in downtown Brooklyn, on in Greenpoint, a developer created a noise mitigation plan after we had had their after-hours variances lifted. And now that they have the noise mitigation plan in place, we're not getting any complaints from the neighbors. And so we can work with DOB to make sure that the developer has a noise mitigation plan in place so that we can try to limit the impacts. There's certain things that just suck, excuse my French, like pile driving. Pile driving is just awful to be around. But throughout a development project, we can really make sure that DOB is working with the developer and that their contractors are trying to be respectful, mindful neighbors, and we're going to do our best to hold them accountable through the construction project, as frustrating as it can be. Okay. Anything you want to add to that, Phil? Okay. The Greenpoint Blue Slip buildings have horrible energy ratings, Ds. Why is this, and can it be fixed? Residents pay more for energy because of this. Any update from the Blue Slip folks on, I don't know, Park Tower, Brookfield?
I don't know, but I can get back to you, so I'll be in touch with your office about that.
And we'll follow up with emails with notes from the interview for this follow-up meeting. Next up, 29 Clay. think this question was already answered, but we'll go, how is your building can go up to 14 stories and every other building, including 1133 Manhattan, is only 6? Why is your building able to build a garage up to 70 commercials building back lot line? If you're putting in a residential building, why don't you have to have a backyard? Why should 70 commercial building not be able to have back windows on the first floor? I'll leave these here so you can read them.
Well, that's the zoning of the lot that we purchased. There was zoning analysis done, and that's the as of right. Saying that's the as of right zoning that is allowed to the site. So that's what is allowed to build. Garage after 7 is a commercial building, plot line, residential building, and the backyard. So there is the parking on 29 Clay Street entertain also the parking from 72 Commercial Street, which is the facility. And since we are not doing a basement in the 29 Clay Street, the first floor, which would be a high ceiling, maybe like 25 foot tall, with a stackable parking, as well as the parking requirement for the condos and for the community facility. And in a building, there is usually no backyard, there is no space in the backyard. You have a very large terrace on the second floor, and the back of the building.
Thank you. We will follow the DOB on this question and make sure that it's reviewed carefully. But thank you for asking it, and we have it in writing. This is a question for the NYPD, Lieutenant Delaney. I'm not sure if I'm putting you on the spot, but what efforts are being taken on West Street to address trucks parked or idling in bike lanes? Is that an enforcement issue that the 94th Precinct can look into?
Anything involving trucks, bike lanes can always be looked into by the New York City Police Department. We use 311 to address concerns as they come up. That's a great measure that the city uses just to look macro level kind of what's happening with the precinct and document it. So if you ever have an issue that comes up, utilize 311 and then we can address it specifically.
Thank you, Lieutenant. And we recently met with the new commanding officer of the 94th Precinct, Captain Navarrete, and highlighted that illegal truck traffic is really one of the primary concerns we want to see more enforcement on in the community, and he said it was definitely a priority for him. Okay, I think this is probably a Brookfield Park Tower question. The sidewalks and crossings in front of my building at 1 Blue Slip are always covered with shattered glass. With a playground already right there and a new park being added, do developers consider this a safety and aesthetics issue, or aesthetics issue, and is there anything that can be done to address it? Shattered glass in the crosswalk?
Yes, this is obviously a concern, and we have teams, Brookfield teams, and CNC teams who are regularly circling the sidewalks and sweeping up after any debris.
Okay. For one Java, what are the contingencies for trucks to and from the job site if McGinnis capacity is reduced from the No-Low Block Association? No-Low Lorimer, there we go. No-Low Lorimer Block Association. Is that something that you all been considering?
Honestly, it's not something we've been considering. I'm going to look at DOT. I believe the truck routes are down Greenpoint Avenue to West Street. So off the top of my head, I can't answer how McGinnis, but definitely something we can look into. I know there's been a lot on McGinnis lately.
Thank you, Brooke. Okay, next up for Keith. How is DOT protecting the industrial businesses on the West Street and something streets? Seolas?
Don't really know how to answer that question, frankly, because DOT, again, our right-of-way, what DOT controls is within the city public right-of-way, which makes the sidewalk in. So things that happen in a private property or business, we don't really have much say in. So I don't actually know how to answer that question, to be honest with you.
Thanks. If there are concerns about industrial businesses where our offices can provide assistance or make an introduction to Evergreen, which is the advocacy group for industrial businesses across the North Brooklyn community, we're certainly happy to do so. We have another Brookfield question. Can anything be done to restore the grass between the waterfront and Eagle and West? It has been destroyed by off-leash dogs. Is that something you guys are thinking about, Brookfield Park Tower?
Yes, thank you for bringing this question up. So, Brookfield built the park land in the north part of Greenpoint and Greenpoint Landing. It's now managed by the City Parks Department, so I will have to hand that over to my colleagues in the city to answer, but I really appreciate you bringing it up. It's a pet issue of mine as well, because it's atrocious.
Agreed, it is atrocious. One of the things that I hope will really help is when we get Box Street Park built, because there's going to be a sizable brand new dog run as a part of Box Street Park, so dogs will have a dedicated space to run around and enjoy themselves. Hopefully humans can enjoy the space over by Eagle and West. Our local EEC, Early Childhood Education Center, recently opened 2 pre-K classes. They have 500 families on the wait list. What is being done to support families? It's a great question, and I'm sorry to say not nearly enough. In the mayor's budget, he cut $1 billion of funding for pre-K over the next 3 years. I don't know why, but that was the decision that was made. We had been on a path to making pre-K universal, to adding an entire new grade of education for our kids. It's essential for working families. It's essential for the development of our young people. But we saw massive cuts in the most recent budget that will take effect, that will impact our communities over the next 3 years, over the years to come. We're going to do everything we can in the council, hopefully to be able to push for additional funding for pre-K and child care programs, because we desperately need them. Working families depend on them. Okay. City agencies have not responded to multiple requests by tenants at the North 8 and Havemeyer buildings to conduct a health impact study of the many construction projects nearby. These requests have been sent to local elected officials, Gallagher, Ressler, and others over the course of many years. How can residents ensure the many anomalous health events there suffered as a result of this construction are properly investigated? Well, we don't have the health department with us here tonight, but we're very happy to follow up. So just please reach out to Emily Ruby on our team and Miranda from the McAllister teams in the back as well. We're happy to help follow up and make sure that the health department looks into the issues at North 8 and Havemeyer and does whatever we can to help. This is a broader question. We desperately need a moratorium on development until proper infrastructure is put in place. Our sewer system is old and overflowing on our streets and into people's basements. Is it possible to put a moratorium in place?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, I mean, we're happy for any city agencies that have anything to add on a potential moratorium. Unfortunately, there's nothing in the law that allows for a moratorium at this time. The development projects that are happening in our community, the developers are allowed to build and construct as the current zoning allows. But I'm certainly, and I know my colleagues are deeply concerned about the existential threat of climate change, the amount of greenpoint that is in a flood zone. We have so much to do to better protect our communities, and building out the sewer infrastructure so that we can handle that next big storm is of utmost and urgent importance. And so we're prioritizing green infrastructure projects around our community. I'm really excited. We've got we just put, and with the help of Congressmember Velasquez's office, $1 million into a new green infrastructure project on Greenpoint Avenue in partnership with the Newtown Creek Alliance. It's going to divert 1 million gallons of rainwater each and every year, and we're committed to pushing for new and additional green infrastructure projects around our community. We've been holding town halls, over with the Army Corps around plans to try and better protect and create a more resilient waterfront for the North Greenpoint community, and we're committed to doing everything we can in this regard. It's a multi-trillion-dollar effort to revamp the city sewer system, and so it's no small undertaking. But it is critically important that we expand sewer capacity and better mitigate against floods that have the potential to wreak extraordinary havoc in our community. We're pushing in the council, and I know that Emily and Kristen are in Albany, for more ambitious standards for all new construction. Emily helped pass legislation this year to make all new construction statewide electric starting in 2025. We've got a local law in New York City where that starts in 2024, and we're doing everything we can to drive down our carbon emissions and decarbonize our buildings as quickly as possible. I don't know if there's anything you guys want to add.
I think another thing that we're really trying to work on is cutting down the amount of non-permeable pavement that we have around. So really trying to make more absorption happen to cut off some of the flow into the sewer system. Additionally, looking into more incentives for folks to include permeable surfaces on their buildings and that sort of thing, and also looking at fee structures of water bills and things like that. My office has been working on a state level law around wastewater. So we'll see how that goes. It requires a sign off from the city that I'm waiting for. But we are working legislatively to try to reduce some of the sewer water. So that's something that's really on our minds. You want to add anything?
From Congresswoman Lydia Velasquez, I mentioned last week, the Congresswoman Lydia Velasquez and Dan Goldman led 10 members of Congress writing to the Secretary of the Army about the HATS study, which is the Harvard Tributary Study, looking at flood protection. Of course, we held a town hall back in the beginning of the year. So we wrote a letter to the Secretary of the Army of Civil Works, that's in charge of Army Corps of Engineers, asking to go back to the drawing board on their flood protection, because they're only looking at one kind of flooding, which comes from the harbor, which is storm surge, but not looking at the upland inundation we get from these rainfalls and the water coming down, what we call cloudburst, basically. So we had in WRDA 22 and WRDA 20 authorization for Army Corps to look at these other kinds of flooding, because if you just build a very tall wall, block people off the waterfront, you're also creating a bathtub on the inland side, and that has to be accounted for. So anyone's interested in that, I can share that letter.
It was a great letter. Thank you so much. This is like Dan's leadership in action, so really appreciate it. Jane, is there anything you wanted to add on this question as well? No. Okay. We've got a few geothermal-ish related questions, so I'm just going to hang over here with the One Java folks. Is there a way to have thermal energy networks included in the discussion ahead of groundbreakings? Can we develop a master plan for sites in Greenpoint?
So what do I want to say here? So obviously, One Java is a private development, so we've chosen to make a decision to do geothermal on our site, which serves our site. What I'll note, I have no definitive answers, but a lot of agencies, ComEd, NYSERDA, and NatGrid, are looking at ways to implement geothermal systems. So I'm sure we could take this question away and probably get any more feedback on things in Greenpoint. But yeah, as far as jobs concerned, it is just limited to our site. Yes, so our estimates say that our carbon emissions, how much will carbon emissions be reduced at One Java once fully operational? And our estimates are by 53% currently.
Great, and then one more.
So the question was, would it be possible for One Java to be a geothermal energy hub for the community. I'm going to say I'm going to need to investigate exactly what that would mean, and we can come back to you on that one.
No, I think there's a lot of excitement about the geothermal energy that's being generated at this site, and we hope that it's the beginning of more development sites that take advantage of it. So, a notable thing indeed. For all developers, maybe we can just pick on a few of you. As a concerned citizen about the climate, I'd like to ask developers the following. Does your current or future building have electric heat? If so, is it conventional electric heat or using a heat pump? Finally, does the tenant pay heat? So maybe we'll start with the folks at Newhart. If you don't mind, pass this around with me. We can ask the developers.
So all of the appliances in our units are all electric, and everything is sub-meter, and the tenants pay. The P-type units or VRFs, locally, are all heat pumps.
One Java again. So One Java is a fully electric building. So yes, everything from domestic cooking to hot water generation is all electric at our site. The tenant and our market rates pay heat. And yeah, they get electric though. Okay.
Would you guys like to jump in on the would Brookfield be able to jump in on this one too?
Our building's already complete, so any future buildings do not have electric heat. And does the tenant pay heat? Yes, the tenants pay heat.
Mark Tower for the new affordable housing development?
Sure. Just in terms of climate change, our project does have a large solar array that powers most of the lighting and heating and cooling for the public spaces. The building does have electric heat, and the tenants do not pay for it.
At 16 DuPont Street, we're on electric heat. The only thing powered by gas is the emergency generator. And the tenant pays for it.
Thank you so much. Jane, I'm not sure if this one is for you, but why are we continuing to develop in a flood zone? Is that a question that DEC can offer any comment on, or DOB? That's a great question. Laura's going to jump in on that.
Not to take up your stuff at all. No, I think I just wanted to reiterate, I think it is a real challenge to develop in flood zones, and so much of New York is in a flood zone, obviously. We saw that with Hurricane Sandy. I just challenge all of us to understand that a lot of the development, including at Greenpoint Landing and a lot of the parks currently being developed along the waterfront in New York City, are absolutely taking this into consideration, and therefore are actually building to protect against floods. If we were to do nothing, to not develop on the waterfront, we would actually continue to put ourselves in a position of exposure. And so, in fact, the construction of new parks, and in many cases new housing, contribute to the safety and resiliency of the neighborhoods. And I encourage us to think about growth and progress and development when it comes to resiliency in that way.
That's observed. Thank you. Next question, is there any update on opening the gateway to Greenpoint, promised to Greenpoint when the new Town Creek wastewater treatment plant was built? So I obliquely referenced this a moment ago, but in the budget this year, we put somewhere between $700,000 and $1 million into the project, and I know Congressmember Velasquez is also committed to invest in this project. This is a site by Greenpoint and Kingsland that's a city-owned site that is going to be a major green infrastructure site and a park space for the community. We're still working with DEP on who's going to be responsible for managing and upkeep of the site, but the capital work is fully funded, and we're hoping it's going to move forward as quickly as possible. Do you want to add? Am I overstating?
No, I just want to manage expectations that the Congressman put in 2 community project funding requests through EPA STAG. You know, every year the federal government funds its agencies through appropriations. And so we do have something for this project and another one on the Queens side on Newtown Creek at Dutch Hills. However, you may have heard that the federal fiscal year is at the end of this month, and if we don't have a bill, the federal government shuts down. So, no laughing matter. It's not looking that good, and we can't make any promises in terms of our appropriation requests, but right now it's not looking great.
Thank you, Dan. I didn't mean to. The Congressman's so good at bringing home the bacon, I just assumed that he put the application in and it would be all set. Yeah, but we do have some dark days ahead in Washington for sure. Next question, relating to Commercial Street. Along Commercial Street, there are only 2 tree pits. This building is 35 Commercial. I don't know if that's you guys. This building has one of the largest footprints of all of the Greenpoint Landing towers. Why only 2 trees when the other buildings have many trees? I heard it was due to electrical. How can we fix this? So just for awareness, on any new construction in the city of New York, developers are required to build new trees depending on the frontage of the building. If the space, for whatever reason, for subways or electrical or whatever it may be, cannot accommodate as many trees as is required, they're required to do it off-site. But I don't know the specifics of this site, or if you have anything you can add.
No, you absolutely nailed the answer, which is that we had a lot of infrastructure under the street in those locations, and so we weren't able to put as many trees as were required, and so those trees were being off-site.
If anybody has suggestions or ideas for new locations for trees, we've committed. Katie's excited for trees in the back. Our office is committed to fill every available tree bed across our whole council district over the next 4 years. We're planting 3,400 new trees, thanks to in partnership with the Parks Department, and so we're eager to fill every possible tree bed that we can. Okay, next question on affordable housing. Affordable housing seems to run the gamut, from units geared to those making well over 6 figures and those in poverty range. How many units will be affordable to the many service industry workers in Greenpoint? What % of affordable units are those for those under 6 figures? So we can circulate the affordability levels for the affordable housing that was agreed to for the different projects that are being discussed today. Unfortunately, for many of these projects, they're not affordable enough. And when they were agreed to many years ago in the Greenpoint Williamsburg rezoning, we did not have the same kind of requirements and expectations for deeply affordable housing that we do today. And these projects are subject to when they were approved, which was 15 or 17 years ago. It's certainly my commitment, I know Emily and Kristen and Congressman Velasquez's commitment to fight for truly deeply affordable housing everywhere we possibly can. And we have too few publicly owned sites left in our neighborhood. There's a big MTA-owned site by Clay Street and a couple other smaller parcels, but those are opportunities where we can build deeply affordable housing and fight for housing at lower income levels. And whenever projects come to the City Council for approval, we fight for the deepest affordability and the most affordable housing that we can possibly secure in the projects. I don't know if there's anything you guys would like to add on that as well.
Around the end of the month, I'll have a new bill coming out about a social housing authority, which will be an opportunity for us to build housing that would actually have different kinds of regulations for affordability and would be built with the intention of housing people and not making a profit. So I'm really looking forward to releasing this bill, and I'll let you all know when it's out there and we can have like a forum about it.
That's really exciting. I think the other thing, just going back also, is in addition to deeply inclusively affordable housing, which is why I'm so excited about this social housing bill. I hope to see a lot of the same faces here go to the next event on that. I think what we're really talking about a lot of these questions is quality of life. And we're talking about a standard of dignity. So, of course, with that being the lens, I do want to take back to Albany and something that we have been fighting for, of course, is more green space, more schools, more social infrastructure. That means investment and expansion in our libraries. I saw one question card that not only talked about the sewage system, but talked about the, post office, like having enough post offices. So looking really driving down to that level. And I will say that this year, Emily and I fought a lot for expansions and investments in things like libraries on the state level. And I heard childcare, we expanded and increased our funding on the state level for childcare. So really what I want to highlight too is, in addition to, as we move forward from this meeting and continue these fights, we have a unique challenge between city and state, and I know Lincoln's been doing a lot of the work with this administration to keep on bringing all of these issues to the forefront and pushing back against this scarcity mindset we somehow seem to have when, the state has also, been willing to increase these investments. But in order for us to successfully work across levels of government, we definitely need all of your support as well in these fights. So, this is kind of our pitch for tonight's a starting point, but tomorrow we continue to organize around each one of these issues. And need your support in that too. But yeah, thank you.
We got a question. Was there something you want to add to that?
No, I'm going to have to leave now.
All right.
I want to thank you.
Thank you, Linda, from 60 West Wharf Street, Wharf Drive.
60 Wharf Drive, West Wharf is the project.
All right, West Wharf. So it's a big old project. Thank you for joining us, Linda. Appreciate you joining us, being with us tonight. We're asked what's being done to root out corruption in the Department of Buildings since the departure of Commissioner Ulrich. If there are any allegations or concerns about corruption, please let us know, and we'll follow up with the Department of Investigation to make sure that the issue is inspected fully. But we have not received any complaints in our office around these lines, but we're very happy to follow up if anyone has any specific concerns. What happens to the old school site? If you do not build on that site, what will it be since this parcel was part of the Greenpoint Landing land transfer? If the proposal that we identified to build a new school in one of the future development projects in the community comes to pass, comes to fruition, then there would be development on the site where the school was initially slated at DuPont and Franklin, but there's no agreement in place at this time, and we've got to get the mayor on board to make that happen. Some DOT questions, Keith, just when you thought you were getting comfortable. With the new bikeway on Berry Street going both ways, are cyclists required to obey stop signs and traffic lights at intersections?
Yes, they are.
Thank you. How will these projects impact McGinnis Boulevard and truck traffic on side streets?
Very. Well, we are, so briefly on McGinnis, we are starting work on a project from the bridge down to Tyler Street, where it's going to be a protected bike lane, and it's going to be parking protected, but there will be traffic from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. So that's the plan for this year. We are looking at, we've done a traffic study that we're going to model to see how the projects are going to impact traffic within the Greenpoint community, but we're also going to be observing things as these projects get implemented. If changes that need to be made, we will make adjustments as we see them in our observation.
Thank you, Keith. Now we have a question for all of the development teams who have mixed-use projects. What kind of retail stores are planned for your projects, if you've identified any at this time? Anyone ready to speak to retail plans? One Java?
It's a bit early for us to talk about specific plans, but our intent is for local retail, meaning we have actually a very shallow lease depth, so we will not be having any big nationals. Our space is not suited for that. It was really designed to continue the scale of retail that you see on West Street. So we would love to see businesses from other parts of Brooklyn who are maybe looking to open their next restaurant, their next coffee shop, their next stationery store, whatever it is they want to do, be interested in coming to Greenpoint in our site. So that's really our strategy, is go local and not go national.
Leaving a test on the retail, but again, on 6062 Commercial Street, spoken before, we also feel, in Williamsburg and kids also feel there is school is not enough, and we wish to occupy the space for the school. Starting, we have a plan with construction next year, but we're going to start heavily to try to bring school to our building. It's mostly what you visit will be facilitated in part of an existing building here. It's a standalone, complete 7-story facility, which will be handed to a school or medical, and we obviously trying to source and find a school to position of the place.
Any other development teams want to add anything on the retail side? Mark Tower?
35 Commercial has 2 retail spaces. We have a tenant for one that's going to be a great Mediterranean restaurant. It's a small owner who has one other restaurant in the city. But this is my little sales pitch, that we have an available retail space. We would love to have a local restaurant tenant come and take a look. All the information is posted outside the space.
Thanks so much. Anything else to add? I would just say we want your input on what kind of retail gaps we think we have in Northern Greenpoint. In other neighborhoods in our district, we've done surveys, gotten input, and then engaged developers successfully to bring in bookstores or restaurants that specifically meet the need or fill the gaps in a given block or neighborhood or area. So we're happy to do something similar in Northern Greenpoint so that we can give real data to the development teams here as they're working to bring in small businesses that really meet our neighborhood's needs most effectively. Keith, another one for you. Why are there no east-west crosswalks on Manhattan Avenue at Ash, Fox, Eagle, Huron, and Noble? Every other street on Manhattan Avenue has crosswalks. This is our busiest pedestrian street.
I don't know, but if you have a request for us to look into having crosswalks, we can do so. Like I said, the process that I explained a little earlier, so happy to do that.
Thank you. And feel free to reach out to our office. We're happy to request a study be completed by DOT if that's something. Jane, how is it possible to safely remediate the DuPont site that Newhart is redeveloping, but not to get the proposed school site remediated?
As far as I know, the proposed school site doesn't have any contamination. So I'm not sure what that question is. There was a part of the remedy for the Newhart site was to put in a cutoff hole around the proposed schools parcel. That has been done. So it's really not a question of remediating the site, the school site.
Thank you. That's DEC's perspective. We appreciate it. And if others would like to chat with me more, I'm available. 270 Green, a concrete plant, really, how did that happen? Where did that project start? I don't know anything about the origin of the concrete plant and certainly have some very significant concerns about the environmental and health impacts that it can generate. My understanding from the research our office has done on this project is that there's no external regulatory approvals that were needed for the site to be built, for the concrete plant to be built at this location based on the zoning of the site. But frankly, we should have more restrictions in place for where concrete plants are going up because they can be very hazardous to an adjacent community. And we're going to do 270 Green Street. Just like Provost, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Somebody can, yes, like Provost. Thank you. Keith, can the West Street bike lane be concrete protected? The bike lane is ignored by trucks and delivery vehicles, and it is unsafe.
We have to check the design. I will say briefly on West Street, it was a bike lane that was capitally reconstructed recently, some of the part that they built that connected it to Commercial Street where it was no road before. And it was an elevation grade change in that at least we tried to do that as a design. We weren't able to have that done fully once we actually went out there to construct the roadway. So there are ways to protect the bike lane to keep things out. We can examine West Street to see if there's a possibility to do it there. We probably have to look at other uses along that roadway to see if there's a purpose. So we can just look at it, that's what I can promise.
Thank you so much. Next up, what is a landlord's responsibility to protect their tenants from the hazardous effects of nearby constructions or demolitions? Is that something that you can help us answer, Philip? So, it is a landlord's responsibility to help protect against hazardous conditions if they're all coming from the building that the landlord owns. If it's coming from the adjacent property, then we have to go after the adjacent property or whoever is causing the hazardous conditions. And so please let us know if you're aware of any sites that are causing hazardous conditions across the neighborhood. We will immediately get DOB inspectors and, as necessary, other agency inspectors out there to hold bad actors accountable. And we're going to do 5 more minutes of questions, and then we're supposed to be out of here by 8 o'clock. So we'll just give folks a chance to ask any follow-up questions one-on-one to the city agencies or development teams here, so that we can respect the Polish Rocket Center's policies. What are we doing about potholes by McCarran Park, Bedford and Nassau Streets? I don't know if that's on our list of repavings for this year. We'll take a look at that, but we'll certainly follow the DOT and try and get it repaved as quickly as possible. What is the projected population growth along the waterfront and with all the buildings on the side streets under development? It's a great question that I don't know the answer to, but we can definitely take a look at with the Department of City Planning. When they do neighborhood rezonings, they do project population growth for the area, and so we can take a look at what they projected and looked at for our community. And I will say that our council district has grown in population more than any other in the city of New York over the last 15 years. And so we've already seen a lot of population growth here in Greenpoint, in downtown Brooklyn, in South Williamsburg, and other communities. So we were informed that buildings off of the water had height requirements. How is 29 Clay allowed to be 12 stories tall? I know this is the 3rd time this question is being asked. I think that they said it's as of right, according to what they're allowed to do. We'll also follow up and take a look and make sure that they're following the rules and regulations on that. Why are the affordable housing buildings segregated / separate buildings? So there was recently a law passed in the city of New York about 5 years ago that prevented something that used to be called a corridor. That no longer exists. So if you have affordable housing in a development, it's one lobby, one entrance, one doorway for everybody, whether you're paying market rate or affordable housing, which is a good thing. Some of the affordable housing projects that have been built in Greenpoint and that happen in other neighborhoods as well, they do separate buildings for the affordable housing and separate buildings for market rate development. But I don't know if there's any further insight you want to share on that. It was a policy choice that was made. Okay. And then, how is it going to affect the siting of city bikes? How do all these projects affect the sightings of city bikes? Do you have anything on that?
The decision to site city bike stations are actually independent of development, so we look at where usage is and the density of the network. Most of this area has city bikes installed for years now in Greenpoint and Williamsburg, and in fact, they were originally installed years ago, and then we actually densified it not recently. So based on that usage. So it's not really development based, it's basically usage based, and if we see a need for more stations, we'll work with the community to add some.
Thank you so much, Keith. We were asked about, with all the new buildings and new residents or their plans for new school, which I think we've discussed, or a hospital. And that's a great question. Ever since the closure of Greenpoint Hospital, they built Woodhull a decade or so later, but it's quite a distance from residents in Greenpoint, especially northern Greenpoint. We haven't had a new public hospital built in New York City in many, many decades. Woodhull may very well be the most recently constructed, and that was certainly 40-odd years ago. So, in light of the pandemic, I think there are good questions about whether we need to expand inpatient hospital capacity, better access to emergency rooms, but certainly it's a big priority of our office to expand outpatient healthcare and outpatient capacity. Brooklyn Hospital has been doing some work up here. We want to do more with Health and Hospitals, our public hospital system. We have the largest public hospital system in the country in New York, 11 hospitals, 75 outpatient clinics. It's a great resource for New Yorkers, and we'd like to expand their presence into Greenpoint. So that's certainly a priority for all of us moving forward. And maybe in some of the community facility space that's generated in the new construction that's going up, we might be able to convince Health and Hospitals to come and support our community. We've got another question about the lack of schools. We'll do this as our last question and then make sure we have time for everyone to pack up and organize ourselves together. How do traffic and parking modifications affect public transit vis-a-vis decreased bus scheduling? I'm not sure of the context of decreased bus scheduling, but what I can say is that congestion pricing was approved a few years ago and is expected to take effect in New York City next year. And the MTA has committed that the additional revenue that they generate from congestion pricing, where folks will pay a fee to drive into Manhattan, south of 60th Street, that money will be directly invested into better train service, into more bus service. This year in the state budget, thanks to work from Emily and Kristen and a number of their colleagues, we were able to increase G-train service during weekday hours and weekend hours. So it's should be down to about 8 minutes per.
We're going to have one of the free pilot bus routes too in Williamsburg, not in Greenpoint, but yeah.
All the way from Canarsie to Williamsburg Bridge is going to be one of the new free bus pilots, which is great. We have recently. They did take away a bus stop on Meeker recently. That was a part of a recent project. Pete, can you offer any insight on that? I think it was a Houston, is that right?
Yes. Basically, as part of the project we're working on Meeker under the elevated, we worked with the MTA to look at ridership, and we did take away a bus stop there. With the ridership numbers, they were very, very low, so they were comfortable with us taking away that bus stop.
So I really want to thank everybody for coming out. Just a couple updates I wanted to share. One is Nick from Churches United for Fair Housing. Cuff is in the back. If we have any tenants here who have concerns about conditions in their buildings, please feel free to follow up with Nick. Cuff does a great job advocating for tenants' rights across North Brooklyn and beyond. Been proud to work with them over many years. We also are going to be following up with questions that we were unable to answer tonight via email. And we'll be setting up these meetings on a recurring basis. We can decide in the future if Zoom makes more sense or coming back to the Polish Slavic Center. But we really appreciate all of the community members coming out in the rain and all of the developers choosing to be here with us tonight. Again, this is not a requirement, but we appreciate your engagement and being a part of our neighborhood and community and engaging in good faith and answering questions. If folks have additional suggestions for how we can do more and do better to address quality of life concerns, issues around development, safety issues, whatever they may be, parking regulations, let us know. We're happy to help and follow up with the city agencies that are all here. These are the partners we work with each and every day. I really want to thank everyone for coming out again. Thank you to Emily, to Kristen, Congressmember Velasquez, and hope everybody has a wonderful night. Thanks so much. And there are COVID tests in each of our offices if you ever want to stop by and grab one. Thank you.